Hi everyone, it's me, Carolyn, and today we're going to look at the last section in chapter 2. This will complete our chapter covering graphs. Not that graphs will disappear from the course, but we're going to stop focusing directly just on the graphs. And in this section, I do not have any guided notes for you, but that is because I am just going to be showing you some examples of some misrepresentations that happen in graphing. And the reason I do this is because I want you to stop and think the next time you look at a graph and ask yourself the question, what do they want me to see? Because sometimes, as we saw with our stem and leaf, sometimes gaps can appear or disappear depending on how we adjust the classes, adjust the graph itself. In today's video, we're going to kind of see some examples of graphs that can look drastically different when we change things. Now, these graphs are not lying to us. They're using the data as the data, but by just changing some things, we can make the graph look drastically different. So I am going to share my screen. And I'm hoping my cat here stays out of the screen. He's laying on my computer here, but we'll find out if he behaves. All right, and then this one is actually from our textbook. Oops. And this is the same graph, so that's kind of why I like these, because they show you the exact same information, but two different views. Okay, so this graph is just kind of just showing us the tax rate, I guess, in percentages in 2017 versus 2018. And if you were to look at this graph, I would say that, oh my goodness gracious, 2018, we decreased significantly because I see this huge change in the height of the graph. All right, however, here is the same graph or same information, different graph, same information, but again, now you'll notice, yes, it did decrease. However, the decrease does not look that significant. So, and the reason for this is you'll notice here the scale starts at 0, as we should in this sort of situation, and goes all the way up with some sort of increment. And here we started at 36 and we went up by 1. This is going to overemphasize that decrease. This one kind of underestimates that decrease or underemphasizes that decrease. And so playing with that scaling and where you start the scales can make a dramatic difference. Our textbook does have a few other ones, and I'm going to just let you look at those. The other ones I have for you are out of a book that is no longer in print. But I still find that they are pretty decent examples, and that's why I show them. So I am going to warn you that eventually there will be some very dated information, so just kind of be aware that it is not necessarily for the information that is showing us, but it's for the illustration of the misrepresentations or how we can manipulate data through graphs. All right, here is one that just kind of shows the grams of sugar in a cereal. All right, and if I were the mother, concerned mother, you know, oh, this guy looks like he got the lowest sugar. In fact, based on how high his bar is, it doesn't look like he has very much sugar at all. But again, you'll also notice there is no scale here. Whereas if we had put the scales in and started at 0, Berry Sticks does have 9 grams of sugar per serving. Again, I don't know a huge amount about how much sugar should or should not be in a cereal, but this shows a much different story than this one. Where here I'm like, oh, there's hardly any sugar at all. And I'm like, oh, well, there is some. Yes, we still have those decreases, and this does have a smaller amount, but it is not as drastic as it is here. Okay. Another one that I'm going to show you is looking at crime data over some time. And again, this is dated just because this book is again out of print. But so you can kind of almost ignore the years if you want to. But again, playing with the scale, we can get kind of two different situations. And this is where some politicians can sometimes manipulate how we view things. So if I were the incumbent, the person already in office and trying to get reelected, yes, crimes have gone up, but they've gone up for a long, long period of time. If I were trying to get in office, I would say, holy smokes, the crime rates have gone up and they are drastic. And I could probably play with this a little bit more and make it even more dramatic. So again, I think this is the last example I have of just playing with the scales can really affect how we look at these things. Now, they haven't changed the data. I mean, you'll see in 1989, we're still at 30. 1990, we're still at 32. Same things over on this one, except the scales make them stretch or shrink significantly. And hence can be misleading or misrepresenting is better way of saying it, I suppose. Okay, sometimes we are only given part of the picture. I should see if I can zoom in a little bit and get rid of that glare. There we go. So this is showing us the price of a stock. I don't know what stock, nor does it really matter, from April 25th through April 5th. And it looks, if I were trying to sell this stock, this would be a picture I would show, and I'd be like, hey, look, it's going up. Good time to jump on. It's going to keep climbing. Looks like it's going to be doing a great thing. However, if we look at the big picture, okay, we see that the overall trend for this stock is it's going down. What they've done is they took this box, this little piece here, and they just blew it up. So sometimes we have to remember we might not be seeing the entire picture, or we might not be seeing everything we need to see. So kind of be aware of that. Three-dimensional graphs sometimes can be a little bit of a misrepresentation. I should throw Excel up here. Excel does a really bad job, in my opinion, of the three-dimensional bar graph. In your time, create one and notice that the heights of the bars tend to line up at the front, but the line for that kind of goes behind. So it doesn't look like they're quite the right height. You should make one and see what you see what you think. Here's a three-dimensional graph. And again, doesn't matter on the dates, but if you look at this, I have no way of even knowing how high that piece is at the front end. So 3 dimensions, sometimes, yes, it may look cool. Yes, it may look nice. It's really sharp, but the ultimate part or the ultimate reason we create a graph is to represent our data. And we want to represent it well. And so if we use 3 dimensions, you want to make sure that those 3 dimensions are not taking away from the actual data, that it's actually helping show the data and not distorting it in any way. Pie charts, also the same sort of idea. Anytime we can create a pie chart, we can make it 3-dimensional. Things can get a little bit more misleading. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a pie chart, just because we can also do things with colors to enhance or distract as well. So I want you to think of this graph. If you had turned it So that this piece here, which now looks bigger than it does over here, if you had turned it more towards the front, so again, using that 3 dimensions, but then if you tip it so we get that distant look as well, so seeing things in the foreground and seeing things in the background, things in the foreground are going to naturally look bigger to us because things in the background have been pushed back and then made less size-wise. They're going to be a little bit less noticeable. Also, if you really want to overemphasize that piece, make it even seem larger, make it a nice, big, bold, bright color. Because bright colors tend to make things look brighter, bigger, more emphasis on them. Put these in the dull grays, throw them in the background, push them off into the back, make them shrink a little bit. All you're doing is distorting the data, misrepresenting the data. You're not lying. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So again, use of colors, use of patterns sometimes can be used to misrepresent or misguide where our eyes go. Okay, just a few more graphs. Here is one when they use pictures. Okay, notice that this one is 10,000, this one is 20,000, but that difference in the number of cartons sold is overemphasized because this carton of milk is actually 4 times the size. It not only got taller, it got wider. So by creating these pictures, I mean, yes, the proportions are still the same, but by making it not only taller but wider, we're overemphasizing the increase in milk carton sales. So again, sometimes using pictures can be misleading or can just kind of clutter the whole thing up. And my last graph that I like, okay, is this pie chart in the shape of a hamburger, which makes me feel, first of all, a little hungry. But it is a little bit misleading. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes to look at it before I tell you something about this graph. Maybe you've already noticed, but if you haven't, the percentages do not add up to 100%. And you're like, whoa, wait a second here. We've got McDonald's, which is at 15.8%, has over half of this, which should be a pie chart. Well, if it's over half of the pie, it should be over 50%. What's going on? So what we really have to do in this picture is we have to actually read a little bit more into the information. And that is something that doesn't happen a lot when you are looking at a graph. When we look at pictures, we spend seconds on the picture. We look at it, our brain sees it, we analyze it very, very quickly. A lot of times we skip all the reading pieces. It's just in human nature to kind of take the information in picture form and move on. Because it's like, oh, I don't need to read the fine details. In this one, we might want to, because if you didn't spend the time and notice that this is over 50% of the pie graph, but only 15.8% of the data, you'd want to realize that there's something missing here. And the thing that is missing is the fact that we are talking about the fast food market. These just happen to show some of the fast food market. And I'm guessing this is just the burger places. So the big ones, you know, McDonald's and Wendy's and Hardee's and Burger King. This does not have the mom and pop shops. It does not have, I would assume, fast food pizza joints. I would guess pizzas are going to be a large portion of that fast food market. Subway, those sub shops, all of those other categories as well, all of the other hamburger places that are not even included. Okay, so things that I wanted you to get out of this short video is simply, graphs are around us, they're everywhere, but we want to take a moment when you are looking at information, especially if it's important information that's going to affect a decision that you're going to make. And you want to start asking yourself the questions. Are they trying to misrepresent the data? Do they want me to see this information in a certain way? Did they change the scales? Another thing is you also want to start asking yourselves the question, who is the data? I mean, when we look at data from these students, like who were the students that they gathered this information from? How did they get it? Did they just send out a survey and these are the 5 people that came back and we're basing it off of 3, 5, 10 people? Or did they go and ask 1,000, 10,000 people? We want to start asking ourselves those critical bits of information. That's kind of what a lot of this class is. It's not just learning the statistics around it, but understanding where the statistics come from and being able to start asking ourselves those important questions about the data we're given. Because you are going to be given data for the rest of your life. Sometimes we are overwhelmed with the amount of data we receive. So we want to be a little bit more critical on data, not super critical because we don't want to become that person that doesn't move on from questioning things, but we do want to question and ask ourselves some of those pieces. And maybe we can say, hey, I don't quite believe this piece of data. I'm not going to believe it. I'm not going to dive into it. It's not going to be something I can believe given it at face value. I need more information. And then you're going to want to go and get more information. I hope you enjoyed the lectures you've seen on chapter 2. I am looking forward to chapter 3. Chapter 3, we're going to start manipulating our data, and getting some information based on it. So you've probably heard of mean and median and mode. Those are pieces that we are going to find, which kind of measures our center. And we'll move on from the basics and get a few more details in that chapter 3. But that's chapter 3. I will see you all in the next video. Enjoy your day.